Okay, in this video, I'm going to go over it's somewhat obscure, but I've had to do this before. Occasionally you're given data and what happens is that someone gives you data that's already been pivoted, already been in a report format, and you need to use that data elsewhere. So it would be better to have the data to be more in a transaction where it has more rows, fewer columns. And it's a little bit hard to explain, so I'm just going to jump into an example. Here's some budgeting data where we've got a region, a market, and a product, and this is, I guess, revenues over time. The same product in Cleveland, these are the revenues over time, and this is the total over here. It's already been pivoted, and what I mean by that is that they've got the time slice in columns. And what I would rather have is something that looks like, I would like to have this. And then this would be time period or month, and this would be the revenue. So that this would be, let me try to do this. Copy, and I'm going to do a paste special, transpose, like this. And then this would be copy, like that. So where I would get a record for every time period for every revenue. So this data right there gets transposed to this, and then the next one would be Central Cleveland. So this would start now Central Cleveland there, and that would go down for all of those. And then these would all be like that. And then this data set would be next, like that. And you just keep doing this for every one of these, all the way down. And so this would get really, really long, but it's not nearly as wide. But from this, I can build pivot tables off this much easier. If I build a pivot table off of this data set, I can just bring month in and model. And again, I can do whatever I want to do from revenue standpoint. And boom, I've got the model. And if I wanted to cut this by region, so this is nice because look at this. Month is now something I can cut against. If I try to do that off the original data set, I don't have a single month. I have to pick in individual months. It's nuts. So this data has already been pivoted, and I don't want that. I want this. So how can I unpivot that? That's the intent. That's what we want to try to do. So I'm going to start a new file. And I'm going to use my PowerQuery stuff to do this. So I'm going to do a data, get data from a file, and I'm going to get it from whoops. So it's as again, I'm bringing in an Excel file. I'm going to use the budget worksheet, and I'm going to do an edit. So it brings up the PowerQuery editor. And there's a lot of things I'm going to do. First of all, I'm going to promote the first row to headers. So I'm going to use the first row as headers. And now it brings up region, market, model. But then I got this weird January, February, March. The other thing I don't need the grand total. So I'm going to get rid of this last column, just remove it. Now the trick then is I want to unpivot all of these. I want to unpivot January, February, March, all the way to December. Or, so a fast way to do this is I'm going to click on these. So I look at that, I clicked, and then I held the control key down, and I got these three. And now I'm going to go under transform, and I'm going to unpivot columns, and I'm going to unpivot other. It's going to unpivot everything that's not selected. So rather than grabbing 12 columns, I grab 3, and then I'm going to unpivot other. And look what happens. Boom, just like that, it gives me, and I need to rename this. This now is going to be my month. And this will be my, whatever we want to call this. This is the, dollar amount, if it's a revenue. And I can probably change this, format this to currency. Yeah, so there you go. This is actually ought to be a date, but I'm going to leave it just like that. So there you go. It's I can now take this and unload it. So once I've done all these things, I can go back to File, and I'm going to do a Close and Load To. And this time I'm going to go ahead and just drop it in here. I'm not going to create a data in the data model. So I'm just going to create the table. And I'll put it in a new worksheet. And boom, there's the data. So now from this, I can go build my pivot table. And if I wanted to bring month in, to cut it, and then dollar amounts, and sum those up, and be able to put a graph against that. It looks something like this. I could add a slicer to this. And I'll do a region slicer, a market, and a model. So here's these three slicers. Again, I'm not trying to make this look pretty, but here's three different slicers. So if I wanted to look just at a certain region, boom, these numbers change. And again, I probably ought to change this to scale and format this axis to make it. So now when I change this, you can see a relative number. And clear that off. Or I can pick a specific market or a specific model. Okay, so that is unpivoting data, and when sometimes you're given data that's already been pivoted, and again, usually that's a time slice. You need to get rid of that and transform it and get it back into something that's useful. This is how you can use Power Query to do that for you fairly quickly. Thanks.